Dr. Jacqueline, you're welcome on the stage.
Thank you so much. Good morning, everyone. You're welcome to this session, the CEPI-led vaccine session. I'd like to say that CEPI is very much happy to be associated with this forum, and we would like to thank the organizers for keeping this going for well over a decade. Congratulations. So yesterday, I had a few people walk up to me and ask me where I'm from. And just in case you're wondering why, maybe you take a look around the room and you'd understand why. But yes, I'm from Africa, I'm from Ghana. And in Africa, there is an adage that if you want to go fast, you go alone. It's obvious because then you don't have to have the burden of carrying another with you. But if you want to go far, you go in a team or in a group. And this morning, I really want to go far with this session. So I'd like to invite the following panelists to join me on the stage. I'll start with Dr. Reem Mahmood El-Tahani. Dr. Mahmood is the manager of Biologics Variation Unit at the Egyptian Drugs Authority, EDA. With over 13 years of experience in the pharmaceutical and biologics industry, she has held various positions within the regulatory sector. Dr. El-Tahani earned her Bachelor of Science in Pharmaceutical Sciences from Cairo University and a Master of Business Administration from the Arab Academy of Science and Technology and Maritime Transport. At the EDA, she leads her team in regulating post-approval changes to registered biological products. Notably, she played a role in establishing the guideline for regulating post-approval changes to a registered biotherapeutic product in Egypt. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. El-Tahani. Oh, please give her a round of applause. Don't let the applause die down until she has taken her seat, please. Right. So she's saying that she also comes from Africa. That's why we're alike in our dressing. Yes. So next on stage, we would have Dr. Rawan Al-Alufi. Dr. Alufi is a pharmacist holding a master's degree in biotechnology, working in biological labs in SFDA, the Saudi Food and Drugs Authority, since 2018. Her main duties rely on quality control testing, analytical methods validation, and assessment of vaccines products for lot release purposes. Her expertise was employed during COVID-19 pandemic as she was involved in the assessment of summary lot protocols covering manufacturing and QC testing, which enabled fast distribution to the public in high quality and safe standards. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Rawan Al-Alufi. So next in our session, we have Dr. Abir Al-Thiban. Dr. Al-Thiban is a pharmacist who graduated from King Saud University in 2016. She has been working as a scientific evaluation expert at Saudi Food and Drugs Authority since 2018. Her work is deeply involved in clinical reviews of vaccines and antimicrobials, new drug application and clinical trial applications, assessing its immunogenicity, safety, and efficacy to make regulatory decisions. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Al-Thiban. Oh, she hasn't taken her seat yet. The rule for the session is that you clap until she takes her seat. And finally, we have Dr. Anis Puthan Veettil. Dr. Veettil is a strategic leader with over 20 years of experience in drug development, specializing in pharmaceutical studies and clinical trials. She holds a pharmacy postgraduate in pharmacology from Dr. MGR Medical University, India, and a specialization in clinical research and regulatory affairs from York College, Canada. Dr. Veettil leads the evaluation unit of pharmaceutical studies at the Ministry of Health and Prevention in the UAE. He has expertise in pharmaceutical studies, evaluation, clinical operations, regulatory affairs, and quality assurance. Dr. Anis Puthan Veettil. Ladies and gentlemen. Yes, it looks like some people actually did get the memo. So in this session, we will be discussing strategies for regulatory preparedness and vaccine innovation in a quest to strengthen global health systems. The recent public health crisis have underscored the need, and some of the recent public health crisis have underscored some of the vulnerabilities in our health system and highlighted the need for effective regulatory frameworks and rapid vaccine development and deployment. And to set the scene for our session, I'd like to introduce my colleague, Dr. Alessandro Lazdins, to set the scene for the session. So Dr. Alessandro Lazdins, with a PhD in biosciences, has extensive experience in defining and driving regulatory policy strategies to support development of novel vaccines and medical technologies. Previously, Dr. Lazdins worked at the International Federation of Pharmaceutical Manufacturers and Associations, IFPMA, in Geneva, supporting on global vaccine regulatory policy. Alessandro also started his career at GSK, working in various regulatory functions. Ladies and gentlemen, Dr. Lazdins.
All right, thank you very much, Jackie. Thank you very much, esteemed panel, attendees, organizers. It's really a pleasure for us to be here at CEPI. I'm gonna have a short introduction of what CEPI is all about. And definitely we'll try to be short so not to keep you from our fantastic panel. So what is CEPI? CEPI is a global partnership with a vision of a world in which pandemics and epidemics are no longer a threat to humanity. Our mission is to accelerate the development of vaccines and other biologics, countermeasures against epidemics and pandemic threats so they can be accessible to all people in need. A lot of our work revolves around what we are calling the 100-day mission. So the 100-day mission is a very ambitious mission, a very ambitious target. If we take the COVID-19 example, if a vaccine had been available within 100 days, where there were only about 2.3 million cases, obviously things would have been very different. Instead, the vaccine was available in December, where we already had reached 68.7 million cases. Now, obviously 100 days is a very, very ambitious target. A lot of you here work in the pharmaceutical industry where you're probably used to the more traditional timeline of vaccine or drug development of 5+ years. And therefore, to accelerate that to 100 days is quite a stretch and really, really requires a paradigm shift. Now, this paradigm shift, if we break it down to 100 days, we maybe have 5 weeks where you're doing your manufacturing, your preclinical development, and then an additional 8 weeks where you have to do all of your clinical development, and then maybe a day at most where we get our emergency approval and our regulator friends get to review the dossiers. If we then take that 8-week timeline in itself for the clinical development, within 10 days or so, you need to develop a protocol, review and approve and submit regulatory and ethical clinical trial applications, label your product, ship your clinical trial supply, and also have your clinical trial startup meet GCP requirements. So a lot of work. And actually, we're starting to see some progress in this. Recent cases in Rwanda with Marburg outbreaks have actually achieved this 10-day ambition, but we're not quite there yet. So at CEPI, in the regulatory team, we have prepared or put together what we're calling a regulatory preparedness framework, which essentially separates into 2 phases. What we have are what we're calling a preparedness phase, which is essentially a collecting of data, engaging stakeholders, as we're doing here today, to prepare and laying really the groundwork for a rapid response. And then if and when an emergency were to happen, we would enter the emergency phase, which would really be accelerating vaccine approval and development by leveraging everything that we've done in the preparedness phase to really accelerate and submit things as quickly as possible on data that has previously been agreed upon. We really want to frame this in the context of information equity. What we're trying to kind of achieve and what we, I think, see during COVID is that if you really want to achieve vaccine equity, you need to start with information equity. So we're really trying to push for what we're calling one world, one dossier. This was discussed at the recent ICTRA meeting in November 2024, the WHO meeting. And what we really want to get to is an element that during a pandemic or during a health emergency, we have one dossier in one language that has the same package and labeling at the same time to all countries. And if we achieve that, we really can start talking about equitable access. Now, one of the ways that we are looking at achieving this is through Accumulus Synergy, which is a nonprofit organization that is developing cloud-based technologies for regulatory submissions. I think a lot of countries here will have collaborated and worked with Accumulus in recent times. And what we're trying to work with them on is really this element of pandemic and regulatory preparedness, where we want to have different spaces within their cloud system available to different entities, whether that is developers, whether that is collaborators, or the regulators only, where these data and information is really visible and in a transparent and coordinated way to, again, lead to that vaccine and information equity. So by utilizing this innovation and enabling technology, we want to enable preparedness. This is the preparation of core dossiers during peacetime. This will foster trust and collaboration via reliance mechanisms. A lot of our regulator colleagues here have talked about reliance and how it's worked for accelerating submissions in their country. To then harmonize regulatory requirements that ultimately leads to faster submission and approvals. And finally, promote this information equity that we're talking about by sharing the same dossier with all regulators at the same time. So by having a good preparedness framework, we build trust, which leads to speed and ultimately relates to information equity. So that was our quick introduction. I will now leave the session back in the capable hands of Jackie and our fantastic panel. So thank you very much for joining, and hopefully you have a fruitful discussion.
Thank you so much, Dr. Lazdins. So yesterday we had very insightful deliberations. And one of the things I heard one of the speakers say was that if the product doesn't get to the consumer, then there is really no value, or there is no product. And indeed, regulatory affairs is the gateway to access. If you're looking at access, then regulatory affairs is the gateway. I'd like to ask my panelists the same question to all of you. How does your regulatory authority work to enhance pandemic preparedness? And then also closely linked to that question is, what are the key challenges and opportunities that you see in harmonizing regulatory frameworks across the GCC region, especially with respect to vaccine innovation and pandemic preparedness?
Hi, thank you so much for giving us such a wonderful opportunity. Before we starting the panel discussion, I would like to tell you that the voice is not clearly audible for the panelist. I believe it's same for everyone sitting over here. Talking to the pandemic, it's very critically important for every regulator to prepare themselves, to get the vaccines early to the country and to the patients, or to the subjects, that is very critically important. And every regulator has its own role in, managing such preparedness to get it early to ensuring the safety and efficacy of the vaccines. Here, from my perspective and from our regulator perspective, we have three main areas that we need to focus on, and we're really working on it, and we are focused based on our previous experience that we have gained from the COVID-19 pandemic. The first point is the clinical trial infrastructure, where there are many aspects in clinical trial infrastructure. The first point is to have a kind of regulatory streamlined approval process, a kind of rolling reviews to be happening, to approve, to review the clinical trials on a fast track mode. And we have also addressed such issues during the COVID situations. We had a national Emirates committee that was from the national authority level, where it goes all the applications to the national levels, where we have a rolling kind of reviews to get the early approvals, considering the preliminary data that has been gained through the drug development, the vaccine development process. That is also more important. Secondly, we have to strengthen our, the early phase clinical research centers in association with the hospitals and the research institutions. And being, as you all know, that we as a Ministry of Health are in a very transition stage to move to the Emirates drug establishment, where it clearly it's a very great, a strong vision to establish research and development in the country. And this is also one of the objectives of the ED, to establish such early phase centers that will also give an added advantage for such preparedness. And thirdly, the timely approvals, for example, emergency use authorization approvals, establishing a global standards in review process, in building up the capacity in terms of the expertise in reviewing all these things. That is the first point that I would like to, mention it. The second is the manufacturer readiness. Because, being a regulator, we are not very sure in the region. We do not have many vaccine development manufacturer. That is also one of the great challenges that we are facing over here. So we have to prepare our manufacturer to be ready, a kind of strategy where we need to develop a kind of pre-approvals for making our manufacturer ready, so that they can scale up the vaccine production, so that it will be easily reach to the entire population. That is also a very important point. And also, as I said, the emergency use authorization approvals is also more important, and to have a reliant strategy, to have a mutual recognition agreement with various stringent authorities, to have a reliant strategy, so that this agreement will give an access to the country to get the vaccines early to the nation, and also to serve the community and the population. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Veettil. Same question for you.
Yeah, I would like first to thank you, the CEPI, for this initiative. This is really important after what we have been through COVID, and the presence of such initiative is really, really beneficial for the global health as well, not only Africa. Yani. So I wouldn't add more to what he have said, the timely approval, the mutual recognition and reliance, and so on. But I would say that I would advise the regulatory authority coming from Egypt and Egyptian Drug Authority to work on a robust regulatory system. This is the first thing that we can do. So I see a lot of initiatives regarding the maturity level of WHO. So we can all work on this. We as the Egyptian Drug Authority, we're currently collaborating with other African countries, helping them in achieving this maturity level 3. Ghana is one of the authorities we're working with now. So building a robust regulatory system would help. Working on your capacity and building capacities either by collaboration with international associations that would give you insights regarding the international language of regulations outside the African countries only. Working on your manufacturing capabilities as well, as the esteemed doctor has said. So since the COVID, we have been working on enhancing our manufacturing capability. And this we have witnessed by manufacturing vaccines during the COVID. We were one of the manufacturing producing countries during COVID. And we take this approach in a stepwise approach. We didn't just manufacture the product from the formulation and filling. No, we supported our manufacturing by doing like an approach is called the second brand manufacturing, and we have it right now, where we enhance the manufacturer, a local manufacturer, to manufacture an imported product and take the license from the patent reference product, and start by manufacturing the product by secondary packaging it, then going upward, the primary packaging, the formulation and filling, and so on. So working on these kind of approach would definitely help and support the manufacturing in gaining the knowledge and the experience in the manufacturing development capabilities. I would also say that the challenge would be the R&D. This is a challenge. This is a challenge for Africa as well. This requires a huge fund and a huge collaboration. So this is one of the things that we need to work on the R&D and development and the innovative vaccine development. And the opportunities we have now, I see that they are, we're here today. Since yesterday, we're talking about how we want to collaborate, and I can see a lot of improvement in all the regulatory authorities, starting from the implementation of ECTD, the integration of AI, the track and trace program that will definitely help the supply chain management, which will all lead to the preparedness for any upcoming epidemics or any crisis that could encounter us. This will definitely help us face it very well, inshallah. Thank you so much.
Wow, so insightful. Thank you so much, Dr. Al-Tahani. This morning, we are lucky to have two from Saudi FDA. They say two is a treat. So we will take one after the other from different perspectives based on your different divisions.
Yes. Hello, everyone, and thank you for this great opportunity to be a part of this interesting panel discussion. So the Saudi Food and Drug Authority has played a major role in ensuring, in enhancing pandemic preparedness and also ensuring the timely access for vaccines and medical treatments. And this was shown, for example, during the COVID-19 pandemic period, where the Saudi FDA has actually implemented a lot of procedures, a lot of major steps in order to ensure, to support the public health and also ensure the safety and effectiveness of the available COVID-19 vaccines. And I will be mentioning some of these major steps that the Saudi FDA have implemented. And the most major thing was initiating the rolling review pathway and also giving conditional approval during that time. So as you all know, during that time, a lot of companies and manufacturers started to develop new vaccines to prevent the spread of the virus. And there was, because of the limited time period at that time and the need for a vaccine, we implemented this rolling review pathway in order to encourage companies to submit any available data of the still ongoing clinical trials. Also for clinical and also quality evaluation at that time. And because of this rolling review, it was shown to be very efficient, as Saudi Arabia was one of the first countries to have a COVID-19 vaccine, which is the Pfizer-BioNTech in 2020. And also, I would like to discuss another step that the Saudi FDA has taken, which is monitoring the clinical research at that time. So as the clinical research was ongoing during the COVID-19 and the vaccines, there was actually direct lines and communication lines with the clinical centers that the studies are still ongoing. And because of that, it encouraged the applications for registration at that time. And the companies were very excited to hear from us and have a direct line to communicate any challenges and any opportunities that can happen at that time. And I would like also to mention the most important opportunity that the Saudi FDA has taken in order to enhance the harmonization of the regulatory framework in the region. And the most important one was our many collaboration with the international and also national organizations. This allowed Saudi FDA to actively work to enhance the cooperation and also the trust among regulators worldwide. This was in the form of communication in some common interest, like the safety and efficacy of the vaccines and also medical products. So this level of engagement actually enhanced the Saudi FDA role in national and regional leadership role in this matter. And I will give you some examples of those collaborations with the international community. For example, our communication with the Medicine and Health Product Regulatory Agency, the ICH organization, and also the Emirates, which is the largest medication and vaccine regulatory authority coalition. And this collaboration with the Emirates actually facilitated our communication with the top regulatory authorities worldwide, and also made the Saudi Arabia to stand as the first Middle Eastern country to work and be member of this large coalition. And I would like to pass the mic for my colleague Rowan to continue.
First thing first, thank you for inviting us to this informative summit. It's an honor to be here. I would like, as also my colleague already mentioned, I can add like few points when it comes to regulatory acceleration. I think we need to be more open to the external world when we have to adapt, international guidelines and certain, pathways when it comes to the regulatory approvals, especially for vaccines. As Dr. already mentioned, the emergency use authorization pathways, we need also to have some sort of a foundation, a basic foundation, a very strong foundation when it comes to the post-marketing surveillance programs. Also strengthening the pharmacovigilance to monitor both the safety and the efficacy of the vaccines post-approval. I think also when it comes to for example, a very well-known, international guidelines worldwide adapted by WHO, like mutual recognition and reliance, those kinds of mechanisms or those kinds of, platforms will help whatever regulatory authority, whatever you are, it helps you to facilitate the process when it comes to, the approval, especially in certain situations as what happened, in the COVID-19. I think we need to, as I mentioned before, to be open to the external world. We need to collaborate more and to adapt. It's more of an adaptation and to be a resilience when it comes to the approval, just for the sake of helping, the patients at the end of the day. When it comes to the vaccines, it's obviously the population or healthy population mainly. So I think the criticality here is more, important more than ever. My colleague already mentioned the main opportunities. I think from my side, I can just add a few points when it comes to the challenges that we face here in the GCC region. I do believe that each GCC region has like its own, different perspectives when it comes to the regulations and, approval pathways. And what we need to do, I think, is to find this harmonized network or harmonized framework that brings all the GCC countries under one roof to set regulations and to focus on the preparedness when it comes to the vaccines mainly. I think also one of the main, challenges is the differences in the GMP, enforcements among different GCC countries, like whatever it comes to the inspections and licensing, clinical trials, and the list goes on. Last but not least, I do believe that one of the main also, I think, challenges, other than the GMB, is the biggest, elephant in the room here is the supply chain and the differences in terms of the importing regulations, storage conditions. I think these challenges, affect in some way or another the supply of the vaccines or the reach of the vaccines to the market. I really do believe that collaboration, investments, focusing on innovations, validation of an AI tools will help us as a regulatory authorities, whether we are in Africa or in GCC countries, to face whatever problems happens and to assure a better equity and a better distribution when it comes to the vaccines among the countries. Doesn't matter if you're a rich country or not. I think if we just focus on the equity of the vaccines and we moved forward when it comes to collaboration, investments, innovations, and the R&D perspectives, the clinical trials, how would we be able to facilitate the approval process and things like that. Last but not least, I can say that in the SFDA, we do have a vision. We are very ambitious when it comes to the values of that is highly linked to our strategic plan. Is that we do seek to have one of the top 5 regulatory authorities worldwide, and it's one of our values to protect the public health. So. I think that's the main, challenges. And let's be optimistic at the end of the day. If we're focusing on, as I mentioned before, adapting, being resilient, and open more to the world and the international guidelines and try to fix things to the better, perspective, which is, at the end of the day, the public health. So thank you.
Thank you so much. We took the general question. I'm just going to ask individual questions about your various regulatory authorities, maybe one for each regulatory body. So for Saudi, we just have one person give a response. We'll start with the Emirates drug establishments. The EDE has been pivotal in advancing regulatory standards in the UAE. How does the EDE plan to create a regulatory framework that champions domestic R&D and supports cutting-edge advancement in vaccine development, ensuring the UAE remains at the forefront of medical innovation? I know you touched a bit on it, but if we could just have a 1-minute response to this.
Yeah, thank you so much. And before I respond for this question, I would like to add few points about the GCC challenges that we are facing, and then I will move on to this. As we all know that we have a Gulf Health Council that has been mutually recognized, and all the GCC countries have been participating countries for evaluating the medical products to the registration to the region. However, when you look into this particular situation for the pandemic preparedness and to get easy access to the vaccines to the country, I think we still have many challenges that we are facing, as clearly Dr. said. We have a regulatory variability that has been clearly mentioned. And there is also inconsistency in sharing the data, and it is not very transparent so that, it can be mutually recognized to move on to the next levels. And also, there is also one of the challenges that we are facing from the industry side, as most of the emerging new technology vaccines, still there is a barrier access in sharing the intellectual property and the patency in for the technology transfer of the products and this kind of. So I believe the initiative from the CEPI can take a look on all such aspects to cater the vaccines early to the GCC region as well. And also in terms of the compliance level, also we have many issues in timeline, not issues, challenges, because every country has their own regulations, policies, documentation requirements, and so on. So these all we can, and also there is also one of the great challenges that being a GCC region, we do not have a regional vaccine development center as a hub to cater the entire region. So that is also can be achieved through a collaborative approach with the public-private partnership, giving more incentives and things like that. Coming to your question, the second question, as everyone knows that now it's a great transition that's happening from the Ministry of Health to the Emirates drug establishment with a great and the strong vision, and the main motto and the main objective of the mission and the vision that might have been explained yesterday by my colleagues, to have a very well world-recognized regulatory ecosystem here, more focused on research and development. That is the main motto. As you all have seen, that we have recently issued the federal decree that clearly explains how are we going to move towards achieving these goals that has been set forth for the new EDE. And especially when you talk about the R&D levels, we have many sections and the chapters that is being described, mentioned in the new federal law, and which we give the privilege to the industry to set up, as I said, a research and development center, and also have the decrees talking about setting up the early phase clinical trial center, which are phase 1 centers, the research centers where we give provision to facilitate such studies. And also we are also trying to license certain, the non-clinical centers along with the clinical study centers, and providing various certification to the centers also. And also we are trying to streamline the, approval process. When you talk about, I have a session in the afternoon where I'll be talking more about that particular challenges that we are facing in the clinical trials. But when you look into, for a clinical trials, when you look into the timeline, that is more important and should be more competent enough to achieve. So from our past experience, being a complex regulatory framework in the country, we are trying to streamline the process to reduce the timelines. And also, when you look into the EDE's main objective and the structure is it's very early to talk more about that, but it's about to publish that there is a separate division in the EDE that is more into public-private partnership. So we are looking for more collaboration from the industry with the government to facilitate and to harmonize or to streamline the regulatory framework with respect to the global standards, and more on to be added later on. Thank you so much.
So now to the EDE, the EDA. The EDA has played a crucial role in ensuring the availability of essential medicines and vaccines in Egypt. What challenges did the EDA face during the pandemic, and what innovative solutions were employed to overcome these challenges?
Actually, during the pandemic, the most common challenge that we face is the availability of data. There weren't much data regarding the upcoming vaccine that were developed during the crisis itself. So this was a very challenging for us to assess the benefit of this vaccine before distributing it to the market for the benefit of the patient. But after all, it was a risk-benefit decision that we had to take. I think this challenge could be overcome easily by one of the initiatives that Dr. Alessandro just said in his presentation, the presence of the platforms like the iCumulus platform. This allows us as a regulatory authority to collaborate all together during the evaluation or the assessment for a specific file or dossier, so we can all access the data as well in presence of the reference regulatory authority that firstly authorized this vaccine, and collaborate all together for issuing one decision at one time for one dossier. This what allows us to overcome what happens during the pandemic with the lack of data that we faced. So I think this initiative will be really good to just work on it, and as well as in parallel working on the ECTD during all the GCC and African countries as well. This would definitely facilitate the execution of such initiatives.
Thank you so much. So finally, we'd like to have from Saudi FDA one response. The Saudi FDA has been proactive in adopting international best practices, and you alluded to that in your earlier submission, as well as obtaining WHO maturity level 4 status. Can you share some specific initiatives or strategies that the Saudi FDA has implemented to streamline regulatory processes during the pandemic, and how these can serve as a model for other countries? We're looking at new drug application, clinical trial application, post-approval, vaccine lot release, etc.
So I would like to focus first on the first part of your question, which is reaching maturation level 4 for Saudi FDA. So I will take you to the beginning in 2006, where Saudi FDA was only a member in the ICH working group. And at that time, the authority was working to adapt most of the ICH technical guidelines through its regulatory processes and frameworks. And also, the authority was working on building frameworks and also the scientific capacity at that time. Until the year of 2020, where Saudi FDA became a full member in the ICH. And by 2024, the representatives from Saudi FDA became members of more than 20 working groups of the ICH, where they are involved in the development and also the updates of the ICH technical guidelines. Along with all the efforts that we have mentioned before, me and my colleague, during the pandemic period, this has led us to obtain the maturation level 4 status by the WHO. And also, I could say with much confidence that our experience with the pandemic and the regulatory processes that we have implemented at that time has equipped us at the authority to be prepared for any pandemic in the future, and also the ability to adapt to any changes or emergency status at that time. Yes, thank you.
Maybe a last thing about the vaccine lot release, because it makes, my heart goes, on fire when it comes to the lot release, because what we do basically in the laboratory sectors from our previous experience with the pandemic is that we are so, eager about taking care of the public health and the citizens of the kingdom. So what we do basically is a lot by lot and the batch by batch, vaccines release through conducting a QC testing, and we are adhering to an international, guidelines as it comes with WHO lot release, guidelines when it comes to QC testing. Plus, we can do also the minimally, to review the summary protocol. I think what this one makes us, have some sort of a foundation to prepare for whatever coming, in the future, especially if it's a pandemic or whatever. Like, you have to have a very strong, foundation, procedures, policies, fast track, approaches. And as I mentioned previously, that we need to be more open to, as a GCC, region, open to the external world when it comes to mitigating risks. And we need to be proactive, as with the SFDA visions mainly, is to be, as I mentioned before, a leading regulatory authorities worldwide. And it's one of our main values is to protect the public health. And thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. We still have about 4 minutes. They gave us an hour and we haven't exhausted it yet. And we intend to use all of the time. So before we release everyone for coffee break, I'd like to take a leave from the previous panel and then invite the photographer to come and then take a photograph. And for that, I would like to also invite Dr. Lazdins to join us. And while we do that, I would like to take final takeaway words, just 1 minute, from the only gentleman on the panel, Dr. Veettil.
As a takeaway message, being a GCC region representing a regulator, as I mentioned earlier, we need to have a strategic movement in collaboration with public-private partnership in enhancing such preparedness for our future pandemic, by leveraging all the global standards and harmonizing all the global pathways in approving and making the vaccines early to our population. Thank you so much.
You said from the only gentleman. So I would say collaboration and making benefit from the experience of each and regulatory authority. We can all collaborate on sharing experience together in order to come up with the best benefit for the patient.
Yes, as my colleague said, collaboration is key in this role, and we are happy to share any platform. We are looking forward to any collaboration in the future. Yes.
I think maybe I can finish off and say thank you very much, Jackie, for hosting such a wonderful panel, and thank you very much to the audience for having us. We are CEPI. We are always, our name is the Coalition for Epidemic Preparedness and Innovation. So as a coalition, we are always looking for new partners. So if any of you want to speak to us or have any ideas on how to leverage your technologies, your information, or your regulatory agencies want to kind of collaborate with us, please come and find us, and we'd be more than happy to have a chat. So thank you very much, and I'm sure go and enjoy your well-deserved coffee and snacks. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.